It's a Sunday, December 8th, 2024, 4:36 p.m. in this fine afternoon. My name is Kessie Ian Anderson. Welcome back for another edition of Heresiarch. I've been absent for a while because just like you and everybody else, I'm stuck trying to figure out life and earning enough points to survive. So there's been a lot of changes personally that are for the positive actually, but getting a handle, getting everything under control on those changes just has taken a lot of time. And also, I'm a big believer in the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So that also includes the content. I could rehash over and over the Noahide laws. I could rehash over and over and over Judaism, but I kind of wanted to hold off on those just because to me it was getting a bit tiresome and cumbersome, and I wanted to be able to present some bigger ideas and new information. It's taken a while. I've been researching and studying all over the place online, but I've come across some people and information that to me is borderline priceless. So in this video, what I'm going to do is give you some recommendations of, in my opinion, the most important information of the year. If you're in the truther crowd, if you're in the MAGA crowd, if you're in the conservative sphere per se, there's a bazillion different personalities discussing the same stuff over and over and over. And that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So if you're interested in changing it up with actual information that is highly relevant and not just political talking point nonsense, the recommendations I'm going to give to you are going to be very important. Now, there's a few caveats. If you are offended easily,
I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
and if you are only interested in image over substance, this stuff will not be in your wheelhouse. You will not be able to handle what they are talking about. I don't care about image. Now, if you have somebody who's super polished, if you have somebody who is super well-spoken, if you have somebody who has a super fine aesthetic and can also present good information, fantastic. However, in the world of reality, in the world of YouTube, in the world of amateurs and anonymous researchers, we don't have the luxury of having Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt giving us all of this information. I'm just telling you this because let's take, for example, you have your Nick Fuenteses, you have your Ben Shapiro's, you have your Candace Owens, you have Lauren Southerns, or you have all these personalities that are emerging, and there is an aesthetic used. Let's take the Matt Walsh, let's take the Joe Rogans and the people he has on his podcast. For the most part, they command followings, they command reputation, influence. They're big influencers. Now, the people I'm going into, they're authentic, they're real, and they don't have an agenda. One of the reasons why I like every one of these is also they don't want money. They're not paid shills. These people are 100% authentic. These people are 100% looking out for ours and their own interest because they see the threats on the horizon. Now, a couple of them, it will get into religion. And if you're a monastic or Trinitarian, you will hate everything these people have to say. But I'm telling you right now, they are on the cutting edge. They are on the philosophical edge of where the battle is going, philosophically. Now, the other ones I'm going to present to you, They're not as controversial other than you believing what is already out there, whether you can accept it or not. You are damned for disbelief. Just remember that. You are damned for disbelief. And by damned, I mean the second you say it's not possible, it's not possible. But what they bring up to the table, the sources and the documentation, and that's another thing. Every single person I'm going to bring up has source material. They back up what they say with actual hard, actionable information, not conjecture, not scholars say, not consensus. These people that I'm going to present to you give you the raw, hard information. And if you can't handle that, and when I say raw, hard, documented information, actual, true science, not scientism and nonsense lies to run influence campaigns to dupe you. Here we go. Let's get started. The most important first, for those of you who don't want to listen to the entirety of this or you're already lost interest. In my world, this lady is the most important person on the internet right now. Her and the gentleman I'm going to bring up next. Well, her name is Sabrina Wallace. She is a network engineer. I consider her Sarah Connor in the flesh. If you don't know who Sarah Connor is, that is from the Terminator series. But the difference is Sabrina is real, Sarah Connor is fiction. But the information that Sabrina is bringing to the surface and pointing us to is the most important information of our time. Period. Bar none. I don't care what you think about what Trump is going to do. He's in on what she talks about. I don't care what you think Biden's doing. He's in on it. Now, when I say in on it, they don't even have to be active players. They can just be ignorant of it, and that means you are in on it. If it is a sin of omission, you are still sinning in this arena. That's how important this information is. So she goes from, number one, her own personal experience as a network engineer and working for a company in the Midwest doing cybersecurity and networks and internet cables, etc. Her command in this sphere is, I would say it's unmatched. I have not seen anybody be able to bring the network information to the table and how she explains it better than anybody. So Sabrina Wallace, go to Rumble, and you're going to need to, well, I'm going to go into the next gentleman after her, and that's where you're going to find a lot of her information. She gets attacked, an insane amount of attack because of what she brings up. And people say, oh, well, you know you're being attacked when you're over the target. There's a difference between being offended and you think somebody who's attacking you over your views and opinions, that's one thing. But to actually, and for those of you who have the power of discernment and understand truth inherently, going by your gut instinct, the way people talk to you and sell you information, you can tell if they are lettered and scholared and have fought the fight versus those that are just trying to sell you something and sound good. This lady, Sabrina, has all the receipts, all the sources, all the information, and the mind and understanding to explain it to you. Now, it's going to require a lot of your own legwork. You are going to have to define terms on your own and not be spoon-fed. And now it comes down to this. Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to do your own legwork to be aware of what's coming and to try to figure out a way to mitigate it? Because that's the problem, is the information that you're going to be given, and you can just quit and just say, no, okay, well, it's not worth it since this is what you just said. We don't know how to fight this. We do not know how to defend against what they are doing to us and have already done to us. That's the general idea. People who have been pushing different solutions, you can research those people and they're just out to get money and make money off of this until we're all dead, sadly. And maybe that's what we should do. Maybe that's how it has to be played, is, we're going to die anyway. Eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow we die type of a thing. And I'm not necessarily against that mindset. However, the information that she brings up, the ties and the dots that she puts together, the puzzle pieces, you can't deny it. It's impossible to deny. Yet people are out there running interference. There are a bunch of truthers that slow walk this who know about this, but they just choose to not go into it. And what I'm talking about is the biodigital convergence on the backbone of the fourth industrial revolution. And the biodigital convergence is we as humans being merged with data, AI, and the machines. That's why I call her Sarah Connors, because she's literally telling us about the modern day Skynet. And it uses nanotech, it uses network routing protocols, it uses optogenetics, it uses DNA, it uses biosensors everywhere, and it uses the government and DARPA and different intelligence communities and the telecommunication companies hacking into us. And when I say into us, we all have a biofield. And that's what she brings to the table that people try to attack her for. If you go to Wikipedia and look up Aura, A-U-R-A, you get a big old dose of nonsense. It's woo-woo foo-foo. It's esoteric. It's crazy. Then you scroll down on the same damn page and you see biofield. Oh, all of a sudden they changed their tune. It's all semantics. It's the same damn thing. We have an approximately 6 to 8 foot radius of energy that we all put out. It's called our biofield. Or if you want to go esoteric spiritual, aura. And then you have chakra points in your bodies where the arteries and the veins combine. And also we have electrical stimulation from your heart. And all of these areas, all these points in our bodies are very important to the biosensors that they are injecting, chemtrailing. And if you don't accept chemtrails, I mean, basically what I'm giving you is so high level stuff. If anything that I'm going to tell you, you are a skeptic about, this stuff isn't for you. You are too weak-minded and too closed-minded to be able to understand and accept what's coming, and you're going to walk right into the meat grinder. So in a way, this video is a word of warning to you of what's coming. And I'm relaying, being a little messenger to point you in the right direction of where I believe you want to go. Why? Well, I guess I care too much. So, Sabrina Wallace, biodigital convergence. She talks about 5G, 6G, 7G, 8G, 9G, and 10G, and more. Oh, those aren't out yet. All I heard about is 5G. Yeah, because you're being psyoped by people telling you what 5G is when they have no understanding what it is. It means 5th generation. But then you have to understand what that even encompasses, not just what your dudes on Telegram and on YouTube and these patriots, P-A-Y-triots, who have not taken any time to actually give you actual information. They just give you the scare. Now, what I'm reading is highly scary as well, but it is grounded fear, as in, holy snap, it all makes sense now. What they can do with metamaterials, what they can do with light, what they can do with DNA, what they can do with our cell phones, what they can do with every smart device out there, what they can do to our body. There are points in our body that are directly hackable that they can wirelessly monitor us without a vax, without a phone, without anything. We are hacked and hackable. Now, how did I figure this out? How did I get to any of this? Well, it's because I looked up the word pharmakia, and that's going to take me into a gentleman towards the end of this presentation. So, the book that she's holding in her hand, The Human Interaction, Emerging Technologies and Future Systems. There's other books that you need to read as well, but when you do, you find out exactly how far this rabbit hole goes and what they are doing to us using telecommunications and electromagnetic frequencies. So our eyes can see like 0.00000 nothing of the spectrum. And the cabal and all these demons are literally using all of that against us. So again, if you are more worried about image than substance, don't bother looking into any of these people, because the way she spells it out, some people do not like the way she presents it. Just like a bunch of people probably don't like what I have to say. I get it. I'm not anyone's cup of tea. Very few. I mean, I'm not going to get any followers. I don't care. It's just, I just have it inside of me that, I don't know, I have this compulsion, I suppose, to share information that I find interesting. And I like these people because, like my channel name, I call it Heresiarch, which is an originator or chief advocate of a heresy, because that's where the truth lies. If you follow the group, you're not going to get anywhere. They are running towards the cliff. So these people are pioneers. The actual term of pioneer. Not just it's safe, not just it's convenient, not just it's cool now. They're actual pioneers. And I'm not a contrarian just to be a contrarian. I'm not going to go into a room of 100 people, and if 99 agree on something, I'm going to automatically be that guy that says no. I'm going to use my God-given skills and abilities and reason and logic and intellect and weigh the pros and the cons, but I'm actually doing it based on objective information and not tradition, not faith, not what I was programmed to believe in using biblical narratives, not using any of that. I'm throwing that all out the table, clean slate, and I say, okay, based on what I do understand, what is this pro? What is the con? Not because I'm offended. Oh, I didn't like the way it was presented. I'm not going to listen. But if that's you, oh, I don't get offended. Cue Yoda.
You will be.
You will be.
You
So,
will
Sabrina
be.
Wallace, number 1. You've got to follow her. Now, number 2. And not less important, but of equal importance, is a dude named Shawn. I don't know his last name, but Shawn, non-vaxxer 420 of Rumble. He is a researcher, and I would consider him source document aggregator. He has to work jobs just like all of us. But he sees the threat, understands how serious it is, and he is non-stop daily grinding. Now, I feel bad because I've had to be selfish and do my own grind for existence to survive. So I haven't been able to push and put information into the sphere as much as I'd like to, because I've been researching and reading about this stuff as well. But if you go on Rumble and look up non-vaxxer 420, go through and watch every single video this guy posts, because it's all sourced. And go into his comments and his description of every video, you will see all the sources he uses, and they're all from the World Economic Forum, they're all from scientific journals, they're all from journals of medicine, they're all from technology consortiums, the IEEE and the ITU, the United Nations. He's literally showing you the fist that's coming at your face. And the more people that come across this, maybe we can find solutions. Maybe. But it is so pervasive, it's so evil, it's so insidious, I don't know if there is. So maybe again, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. You're just happy, living your life, watching your sports ball. You got your family, you got things to do. You just want to exist until you die. I get it. I've been there. I've had that mentality. In fact, I would almost love to take the blue pill and go back to that. But I can't. Once you see, you can't unsee. So Shawn, non-vaxxer 420 Rumble, he has all the documentation. He has all of the information that you want to look into. Those two, Sabrina Wallace and Shawn, only two that matter on the internet right now globally. I'm telling you. The reason why is because these people are messengers and a nexus point of this information as well. Sabrina can explain it and deep dive into it, and then Shawn gives you the papers and the research for you to look at it yourself, and he's no slouch either. He's got a very good grip on all the Sabrina stuff, the way she explains it. Some people says that what Sabrina says is too far gone, too much. No. Between Sabrina and Shawn, this is the information you need. This is it. So I'm telling you, I implore you, I'm begging you people, go to their information. He's also on Telegram. You can look up non-vaxxer 420 Rumble on Telegram, and you can start following his stuff. There's a group of people that are on fire there as well, dropping source information. And when I say source, I'm telling you it's the scientific experiments that these people are doing and that they're publishing and that they're putting out there. And it literally explains how they're hacking our bodies and how they're using the internet of bio-nano things, the internet of cyberspace. They're using cube satellites. They're using drone warfare. They're using electronic warfare. And what you better be willing to do is your own legwork. If you aren't willing to do your own research, but how do you do your own research? Well, I'm going to get to that later when I bring up another gentleman. So, Shawn, non-vaxxer 420 Rumble. I hope I spelled his name right. Maybe it's S-H-A-U-N instead of S-H-A-W-N. But he has all the source information, and I'm going to put links to them, if YouTube allows, in the comments. So, again, Sabrina Wallace and non-vaxxer 420. His name's Brandon Joe Williams. He researches law, and he's also an influencer as well. He's on YouTube. He has his own website. I will just put it in as a comment because it's onestupidf.com. To me, he comes across as the lady you meet on dating apps. That's like, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. He's got a lot of that. And those people don't have a best. But he's a genuine, he is authentic, he is what he is. He's not my cup of tea is what I'm telling you, but his information is so important I don't care. I'm overlooking it. So like I said, if you're worried about image, these people aren't for you. Some people don't like how crass he is. Some people don't like the way he presents it. But he is the best out there in the state national movement. Breaking down law, breaking down information based on the Federal Reserve, breaking down what you need to know to free yourself from the United States corporation. And how to cancel the contracts. I'm actually going through some of the information that he's bringing forth because I'm going to be getting a diplomatic passport. I'm going to be revoking a revocation of election. Again, that's not even necessary. He's bringing out new information that kind of negates some of his original stuff, but that's the way it is. With people who are actually researching, people who are autodidactic and teaching themselves, they're the ones that are very nimble in their minds and can say, okay, I was led to believe this information, new information came out, and now we have to change accordingly. And this is all brand new. He's hit some gold in areas that nobody else has when it comes to legalese and legal law and what being a citizen to the United States corporation actually means and how to play that game. There have been people literally getting cars based on his information that the Federal Reserve pays that person to get off the lot, is the way it's been playing out. Or the way it should be playing out. There's litigation going on as well. What I like about him, he gives it all away for free as well. He's not interested in taking your money. So that to me is also a sign of greatness. I would put these three people, Sabrina, Shawn, and this Brandon, in the greatness arena. Because they're willing to give up everything they have for what they believe in. They're willing to give all of the information away. They don't feel threatened. That is the sign of greatness. Willing to share everything you know. Everything. Hold nothing back. Full transparency. No agenda. No ulterior motive. Just sharing the information that you know to be real and true. Now, if you're wrong and you do it, if you had good intentions, can people fault you? Maybe, maybe not. Problem is people think they know it all, and yet, the more I try to learn, the more I realize I absolutely know hardly nothing in the grand scheme of things. So, Brandon Joe Williams, he teaches how to avoid paying taxes forever. And it's real. This is real actionable information. So, go to Brandon Joe Williams. If you're a skeptic, fight the fight, jump in, and then realize how little you actually know. All right, so enough about him. Now, this is the stuff that I came across, and I was pretty blown away. I wish, and well, it's probably good that I didn't come across this dude 5, 6, 7 years ago. Maybe, 15 years ago. I probably would have cried and rolled up in a ball and whined and snotted and played out exactly how everybody else is that attacks this guy. But this guy is a boss, and I would say he is at the cutting edge of a war, philosophical war, that is going to come out and hit hard. And his name is Dr. Ammon Hillman. Some people say Ammon. I guess that might be how he pronounces it. But I say Ammon because in the Book of Mormon there's a guy named Ammon. Now this guy is a Greek linguist and he's a classical scholar. He brought up some points that shook me to the core. To the core! I was blown away. Blown away. Again, if you don't like presentation styles and you're not capable of focusing on substance, you have to watch the movie because you hate reading books. Well, again, this guy is definitely not for you. If you get offended easily, if you can't handle, he's got his own comedic routine that he presents things, he's got his own shtick. If you don't like it, if you don't like how he says it, but I totally understand why he says what he says. And part of that is because he's so sick of the battle. He is the Sabrina Wallace of religion. So when he comes out and he hits out, he brings sources. All the scholars and detractors that attack him only do it on ad hominem, or they will take stuff that he says, twist it, manipulate it, or only focus on some of his hyperbolic statements. They don't touch his sources. Every detractor that you're going to find that cries out about him will only pat you on the head and say, it's okay, don't trust what he says. All the scholars say, all of consensus says, all your pastor says. So if that's your game, if that's how you want to live, feel free. Do you, boo? But what I'm saying is, this gentleman has brought up some massive points that cannot be overlooked. And if you want to overlook them. But one of those points he brings up, and I'm punching myself for not realizing this, but again, I grew up, and as much as I wanted to claim awareness, as much as I wanted to pretend I had a clue about anything, I was a fundamental moron in a lot of areas. Religion specifically, how stupid I was raised to be. And they do. They make you think that you know a lot in the culture that I grew up in, but when you realize how dumb you actually are, you look back and cringe nonstop over the shit that you said, trying to defend it and act as an apologist. Because you're under the assumption that you were given the best weapon. Not only did you not have the best weapon, you realized there was no ammo in the gun. So, looking back, I'm like, wow, I was sent into the meat grinder, and I went in wholeheartedly, willingly, but I was fundamentally a moron. So, again, I've mentioned this before, I was raised Mormon, spent 2 years in Bulgaria on my little Mormon mission, and I learned Bulgarian. I was able to come back, clep the test. There's a test that you can take, and I got all the credits for the Bulgarian language, to say that I'm proficient in Bulgarian. I would argue that I probably have about a 3,000 word vocabulary in the Bulgarian language. In religious terms, I probably have a pretty, compared to most tourists, probably a very high level education in the Bulgarian language, because that's what I dealt with, was religious doctrine. I also taught English classes when I was in Bulgaria, and I started with the better speakers, but then as my language skills progressed, I ended up teaching those who knew no English, because I was proficient enough to explain all the information they needed to an audience who didn't know any English. So I could start with the alphabet, and I could speak to them in Bulgarian the entire time and get them up through. So if you've learned a foreign language, and if you've paid the price to learn that language, one of the best things you can do is read information. And that's what's great about Ammon Hillman. He is a Greek linguist. And when I say Greek linguist, he's possibly, I would argue, the greatest out there when it comes to translating ancient Greek. So let's go back to my Bulgarian example. Even in the Bulgarian language, when you read in the Bible, the Old Testament, if it's the Catholic version, the Pravoslavna Tserkva, the Pravoslav Church, the Bulgarian Orthodox Catholic Church, the Old Testament, the Bible itself, has a couple letters that aren't used in the modern dialect. So the Bulgarian language itself is a living and evolving and changing. So imagine in English, you get to the point where C or a K is no longer used. And so the language has to adapt to drop those. It sounds kind of weird, but that's kind of what happened in Bulgaria with these words, these letters, not words, but the letters themselves. So the Bulgarian alphabet has lost some words over letters over time. So it's an evolving and changing language. Well, so Ammon Hillman brings to the table one of the arguments. And his argument is ancient Hebrew, when the Bible, the Old Testament, was translated, and New Testament, 8,000 words total. Now, if you don't understand that in linguistic terms, 8,000 words that encompasses your entire language, that's borderline, that's 5th grade, that's 4th grade. So me saying in Bulgarian I had a 3,000 word vocabulary, I basically had the ability of speaking of what a 3rd grade kid could say running around. Because when you're naturally immersed in a language day in and day out, and you have the association of context, you have the association of hearing, reinforcement over and over, you're going to learn language fast. So me, I had to pick and choose the words that I really wanted to commit to memory. So a lot of phrases, a lot of sentences, a lot of memorization. And then when you start reading books, then you have to do translation. And that's what this guy does. Dr. Ammon Hillman, he said that the Hebrew has 8,000 words, whereas the Greek Septuagint, so you have Torah, but then you also have Pentateuch. My problem is, the reason why I wasn't able to come up into any of this is because I was, like every Christian dupe, and I'm saying dupe on purpose. If that offends you, oh no. But stay with me. Old Testament, 8,000 words. Do you trust that translation with 8,000 words? Whereas the Greek Septuagint is taking from a fully developed language at 150,000 words at the time of translation. That right there, just that point alone, I knew inherently from me studying and learning and translating words into another language, from English into Bulgarian, Bulgarian into English, that what he said was fact. So you can watch football all you want. You can comment, strategize, and whatever. But until you get on the damn field and take a hit, it doesn't mean anything. Just like Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. There you go. He is punching you in the face, and it's coming from authority. That's the difference. He speaks with authority because he has the street cred behind him. He has read through medical books in Greek. And why is that such a big deal? Well, there's a word, pharmakia. It means mind control and sorcery via drugs. That is Aleister Crowley stuff. So all the stuff that I've read up to this point, I came to the same conclusions as this guy. But I did it on legendary mode, going roundabout, wading through Judaism and learning all this garbage about King Solomon and Moses. And between this gentleman, Dr. Ammon Hillman, And the next gentleman I'm going to explain to you next, introduce you to, Moses is a fiction and fabricated from whole cloth. There is not a single document 200 BC and earlier, not a single document ever about Moses. Nothing about Abraham, nothing about Isaac, nothing about Jacob. So if you're a Bible believer and all truth is in the Bible, nothing else, you can't even handle the book of Enoch, you can't handle the book of Jasher, you can't handle the Apocrypha, you can't handle anything other than what you feel safe in, or maybe you're even just a red letter Christian and you only accept what Jesus said, then definitely Ammon Hillman is not going to be your cup of tea. You're going to join the fight to try to get him crucified. That's how offended you're going to be at the information he brings up. Now, I concluded with Joseph Smith that he absolutely had access to drugs. He was administering entheogens, which are drugs used in a religious capacity, to the church members in the past, and he was promising revelations. Well, because of the movements that took part during his time to push back against drugs, to alcohol, tobacco, Joseph Smith also created a thing called the Word of Wisdom. That was in 1838. So Joseph Smith said, and he said it was just good counsel. If you read through it in their Doctrine and Covenants, their own Mormon doctrine, he just says it was counsel, it wasn't commandment, it wasn't law. But then the membership later agreed and said, nope, if you're going to be Mormon, you have to abide by these. Agency. So, Joseph Smith, everybody looks at that, and that was a huge shield mentally for people to not be willing to entertain these ideas, because modern Mormons, you tell them that Joseph Smith drank alcohol and smoked cigars and tobacco and jumped into some other things, they won't believe you. They won't accept it because of that word of wisdom. That's a shield. And because the mindset is they're kind of spoken to out of both sides of the mouth. On one hand, God doesn't change, but on the other hand, because of revelation, it's a slipper. They have a loophole for everything. Nailing Mormon doctrine to a tree is impossible. It's nailing Jell-O to a tree. It will mold and morph and change and twist and flip. But that's every religion. Mormonism especially, though, because it's so modern and so documented, and then when you can point out the inconsistencies, it's game. You have to do mental gymnastics, and I'm done doing that. I'm done. I don't have emotional attachments to ideas anymore because I know they're not me. I am not the idea that I was presented. So I can put it on a table, I can walk around and look at it and analyze it and say, wonder what it is from this angle. I wonder what it is from this angle. I wonder what this means. I wonder what that means. I can try to put myself in anybody's shoes. Liberal, conservative, doesn't matter. I'm willing to do it. Because I'm an agent unto myself. I am my own individual thinker. I don't need to be told. I am more than capable of taking an idea, analyzing it, finding the source material to it, and determining myself whether it is legitimate or if it's hoax. And when something is a hoax, it cannot be applied. It can only be CGI'd, AI'd, and frauded, and threatened. That's basically it. So with Joseph Smith, my argument had been, he absolutely had taken drugs. And then there's when I came to that conclusion, there's another gentleman that wrote a book exactly about that idea, and how even the Tree of Life narrative in the Book of Mormon is symbolic of taking of drugs. The fruit of the tree was basically a mushroom, because they'd have to reach on the ground and pluck it up from the ground instead of taking it from the tree itself. Anyway, it's fascinating stuff. So I came to that conclusion. However, Joseph Smith, when he was told about drugs, he then had a revelation that instead of using wine, now the congregations would use water. Now, you have to understand, this wine for the Mormon sacrament was under lock and key. Oh, it was just to keep people from drinking it. Oh, really? Is that what it was? people were even pushing back in the church. There's a gentleman named George Albert Smith. He was the nephew of Joseph Smith. He ended up becoming the prophet for a time. And people were commenting to him and saying, how come we don't have the same style of meetings as they had with Joseph Smith? For example, there's a meeting in Kirtland that lasted for 3 days, and people were writing down visions and revelations, and it was full-blown insanity when you actually look at it with normal human eyes and be like, wait a minute, what? Unless you're a holy roller, unless you're a Pentecostal, unless you're a snake handler, you would look at that meeting as a conservative Christian and be like, that was not normal. And I will argue is because it was drug fueled. Now, I am not a fan of drugs. I don't do drugs. I don't touch. I'm a very clean individual. However, that being said, well, let's look at old school Coca-Cola. Had cocaine in it. People were taking morphine. People were taking stuff that today we would be blown away by as their pharmaceuticals. The reason why I bring all of that up to tie it into Ammon is because of his medical background, and when he takes the Greek Septuagint and translates it, he has additional sources from the time to do it. He has additional sources to back up his opinion. And he only goes by the texts. So if text's information offends you, now he does it for real. He grabs books. He looks through the book. You can go on AI and take some of his controversial statements and post it on the internet and say, oh, it doesn't translate like that. It doesn't translate like that. Well, guess what? Because AI runs on data sets, as his information gets more proliferated, as more people validate what he is saying, it's going to start changing the AI narrative, unless those who control the AI, Judaism, doesn't allow it, because he crashes down hard on monotheism. And he brings up the point that is documented in history, in these literature of the Greeks. Christians were the first atheists. What? That doesn't make any sense. Christians were the first atheists because they denied the gods. And they supplanted the gods with a singular God, the Father. Oh, but it's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost now. Yeah, for Trinitarians, but it's still God is one according to them, even though that will get you killed in the Noahide laws. But God is one, so you are monotheistic if you accept it mentally that way. And all that does is set you up for death. Monotheism is the destruction of society. I came to that conclusion previous because of in Judaism, the oneness of God. I.e., anything Judaism brings to the table, you do the opposite. That's a blanket statement. Yeah, there might be exceptions, but for the most part, you want to live a very safe and productive and sane life. Do the opposite of what you are told by mass media, Judeo-corporate education, and Judeo-pharmakia, the pharmacy industry. You do the opposite of what they tell you, you're probably going to live to be close over 100. You don't, well, you're going to be safe and effective and die suddenly. So, Ammon Hillman explains passages in the Bible using the Greek and the way they translate. It will flip your view of Christianity on its head. So, if you don't want to look into that, I get it. You're happy with what you do, I get it. But history, actual honest intellectual history, is that possible? I don't know. But me as a dupe, I only looked at the Hebrew. Everything in Mormonism. The Hebrew taught this. The Hebrew taught that. Hebrew this. Hebrew that. And then when I found out it was 8,000 words, I'm like, what? 8,000 words for an entire language? Oh, but their words, their letters are numbers, so it's Bible code. And then you got little Jew dudes running around. Oy vey! We're God's chosen. Okay. When Moses is totally fabricated, and there's some more controversial statements in the next dude. So Ammon Hillman explains information about Jesus that you will never be able to accept until you understand the power of drugs. And now why do I know it's real, what he's saying? Because Pharmacy is how, medical tyranny is how they are destroying us. Medical tyranny, it was medicine. It's all medicine. But the difference is Ammon has given us the analog prescription of medicine. Sabrina talks to us about the digital wireless application of medicine. Ammon Hillman goes into the Greek information because it gives you all the information about the mysteries. Mystery is just another word for the term ordinance, an actual religious ritual and practice. Ammon talks about the drugs used in the tabernacle. Ammon talks about, in the Greek, the snake venoms. So any of you truthers who paid attention to the vax, you've heard of a gentleman who came out and dropped information about the vax containing snake venom. Well, yeah, and a bunch of people poo-poo that idea. Oh no, when you go into Galen and you go into the Greek information, and this gentleman presents it, the sources he brings, if you can fight through his presentation, are untouchable. Scholars, every scholar that shows up that don't have the ability to take him to task on what he says, because they did not pay the price. His command of Greek and his command of translation and the price this gentleman has paid, he has spent more time in the mental gym, and those dudes have spent on tour just protecting their agenda. That's the problem too, is they have an agenda. I can tell from Ammon, he is bitter, he is upset, he is pissed. Yeah, I am too. The big cliche amongst Mormons, active Mormons, is you can leave the church, but you can't leave it alone. Oh, I've done very well to put my hatred and anger under wraps. And now I'm to the point now that there's actually doctrines I can appreciate a little bit from Mormonism. But now that I'm mentally free, I can look at it now for what it is and just be stunned. I'm just shocked at how dumb I was. I was very dumb. It dumbs you down intellectually. Like, you aren't allowed to think certain thoughts. You literally self-edit. And that's the problem with these scholars. These scholars have number one, protect their belief at all cost. And that alone puts up walls that they cannot look into actual fact. And if they punches them in the face, they will deflect it with a shield and say, oh, I wasn't punched. My nose is just fine, as it's bleeding all over their shirt. So the stuff that Ammon Hillman brings up, there's not a doubt in my mind it happened. Not a doubt in my mind, based on one, the translation using the Greek language at 150,000 unique words versus 8,000. And then when Ammon goes into the Talmud, he goes into the Bible, and he explains who these people were, Judaism. They were the traffickers and the pirates. They were the lestes. And then the king of the Jews, the Christ, and you find out what a Christ actually is. And there are different versions and different types of Christing. It is a verb. It is a drug application in the medical journals. And that's what he goes into. He has actual sources. Whereas with Hebrew, because it was an emerging new language for the pirates and the pedophiles and the human traffickers to hide their stuff, it was brand new because they needed a way to get away with all of it. Now, he doesn't say that. I'm saying that, because that's what makes the narrative work. So Moses is a fabrication. King Solomon, a fabrication. It's all BS. The Old Testament, the Torah especially, there is nothing in antiquity backing up that narrative other than some dudes got together and had to figure out a way to collapse Rome. And if you follow these people with actual sources, what I'm saying is not conjecture. Now, enough about Ammon Hillman. Let's go into another gentleman. And this gentleman's name is Neal Sendlak, Gnostic Informant. That's his name on YouTube. Now, this is a fascinating guy because he's paid a price. Self-inflicted. He spent a lot of time, well, I don't know how much time, I think a couple years or so in prison when he was younger for something he had done. While he was there, he just read. So he put his time to use, and he read and read and read classical information. He also learned Greek, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he actually learned some from Ammon Hillman, but I think he also learned some on his own. I'm not as familiar with this gentleman as I am with Ammon Hillman. However, what this gentleman talks about, he was Christian. He had his come to Jesus moment in prison. And then when he got out, he kept studying and studying and studying and studying history. And he got into the Greek classic history. He came to some of the same conclusions as Ammon Hillman has. And he can back it up as well. One of the points, one of the nuggets of gold that I think he brought up, there was a civilization in Egypt, a little group on the island in Egypt called Elephantine. And to me, that's the elephant in the room. It is the first documented history of a Jewish community. And when they found it and they looked into it and they found documents that these people had actually written, and there's nothing linked to the Torah. Nothing about any of it. No Moses. No Exodus. And these people are literally in Egypt. Literally there. And it is a big deal. And it is going to, you're going to start hearing about these two people. Neal, and if you don't hear about them, you're going to start hearing offshoots as people take the information, look it up themselves, research it themselves, get set on fire, and go out and start engaging in the information war. Because it is. Monotheism is killing us. With what's happening in Iran, with what's happening in the Middle East, with our slave bootlicking for Israel. And that's where I stand by it. I do believe in God. Absolutely. Has nothing to do with biblical. Period. Full stop. Stand by that 100%. So, Jesus is the King of the Jews. Absolutely. Absolutely. When you read what he did in Mark, in the Greek translation, and you are intellectually honest, as in you take the time, go through a Greek dictionary, read it. So, I'm going to walk you through a little exercise about what I mean when I say research. And this in terms is linguistics. So, for example, when I was learning Bulgarian, I bought a book. For those of you who know it in English, just the cover, you'll know what I'm talking about. On the top, it says Robert Jordan. Окото на света, първа книга от колелото на времето. Най-великото фентези на всички времена. So at the top is the author's name, Robert Jordan. Окото на света. The Eye of the World. First book, първа книга, from Колелото на времето. The Wheel of the Time. And that's how it translates. Now, to even do that, you have to remember and you have to learn, if you want to speak Bulgarian, you have to learn the Cyrillic alphabet. That's the first price you have to pay. You have to know the Cyrillic, and then you have to know how the words translate and what letters mean what. And then you have to memorize a set of words. Then you have to memorize the grammar. Let's look at this. I'm not going to bore you with the entire thing. Prologue. Drakonavata planina. What does that mean? Well, if you're interested in paying the price and you want to research, that is when you have to take your next step. Number 1, learn the letters. Number 2, learn how they're pronounced. Number 3, Drakonovata planina. Learn the grammar. Because I know the words, Drakonovata planina. Planina is mountain. Drakonovata planina. Drakon. Let's look up what Drakon means. Drakon means dragon. So, Dragon Mountain is what we have so far. But, what is that? Drakonovata Planina. The ta, and that M is actually a T because it's a small M. Drakonovata Planina. The Dragon Mountain. Are you going to have confidence in your translation of Hebrew with 8,000 words as opposed to 150,000 words to be able to drill down into it? So you have to be willing to pay the price to learn the information, and that's where the research comes in. You have to do it on your own. Just like Morpheus says, I can show you the door, but you got to walk through it. And that's all I'm encouraging you to do. So again, don't pay attention to my nonsense. Don't care what I have to say. My presentation's trash. Go and look at them. These people, these are just normal humans. Ammon, maybe not so much. But he's a man on fire. Every one of these are men and women on fire. Because they have hit on something that resonated with them that is truth. The one I trust the most, though, again, Sabrina and Shawn are the ones that matter the most. The other stuff, Ammon and Neal, their stuff is in the world of pretend. If you're happy living how you want, keep doing it. I'm not going to harsh or mellow, don't care. Until it gets people killed. Now, Brandon Joe Williams, he has taken on the Goliath of the government. I highly recommend listening to his stuff. He has free courses online. And they're worth listening to and putting into action. All right, I've gone on enough. I'm going to have to chop this up a bit, I believe. Until next time.